Yes, indeed. Good for George Teague, and welcome into another Teague's Take podcast. I'm IndyCar Tim. We are live from the Maverick Bar in Carrollton, Texas, 1616 West Hebron Parkway, pretty much 16 minutes from everywhere in DFW, maybe except for Aledo. I think it's a little farther than that. We're here with George, JT. We've got a great special guest right off the top of the show here, Mr. Glen Stretch Smith, former Cowboys scout, former Cowboys assistant, current NFL analyst, co-hosts the show over there with Del Hansen on Channel 8 on Sunday nights. This man knows all the football. George, tell us a little bit more about Mr. Smith.
Well, I had the pleasure to be able to work with him. I guess I can say that in my younger days, back when I was playing for the Dallas Cowboys. This guy here used to pester me a little bit, walking around the field because he was there as a coach. So I'm extremely excited about, one, the lifelong friendship. That was 20 years ago, man.
It's been a while. And as we set up here with your son, he was a little bitty squatter when all that was going on.
That's right. So when you say the name Stretch, and he looked at me like, oh my gosh, he was a big dude. And I'm very thankful that you come out and hang out with us over there. Sacrifice the drive. How long did it take?
It took me about an hour, but it's all good. I'm stopping on the way to see my girlfriend. It's just a little bit of a jag off the road, but I'm glad to be here. And
you didn't know that you were coming to hang out with three guys before you came to the
I got to go right here. I had to go find a little podcast George Teague, and I'll be on the way to see it.
Well, man, we're honored, and thank you very much. I appreciate this. There's so much that we want to talk to you about. Of course, the Cowboys. We want to talk about the sun a little bit, and college school football, and what you're doing in the college school world here. But man, I say we get after it, man. Like, we got so many topics that we need to cover, especially with these boys.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, we sit here and just talking about before the show with you guys, a new coaching staff, a new scheme, talking about what are they going to do. They've got Kellen Moore, they're going to have some lead over from Jason Garrett's offense to what they're going to do, and then already a big major on the defensive side of the ball. Jordan, that's going to cause issues. And I know with you moving into the coaching side of the game, you understand you got to play to the player's strengths. And right now, Jordan Hill, do you trust him? I mean, you can trust the throw Neville Gallimore in there. Crawford, we know he can go down inside, but all of a sudden, when you think about it, this team looks like a 34 team now instead of a 4-3 team.
So do you think that injury with Jerry McCord, does that hurt a lot, or is that just a little bit?
Well, I do think it hurts a lot. I think it hurts a lot, and I think it makes you think about what you're going to do automatically, because now, when you think about the salary cap, You know, they put aside a lot of money to pay Lawrence. And why did they pay Lawrence? To sack the quarterback. Now in the 3-4 scheme, you're going to have that guy dropping something. He's going to have to drop in coverage. And so I think they need to rethink where they're at and think about schematically, really, what are they going to do? Now, I know you know this. You watch a lot of football. I mean, you know, guys are multiple fronts. Sometimes they're 3-4, sometimes they're 4-3. But when personnel dictates exactly what you can do, I think it takes a little bit of the, drama in the Sunday game that can see in on what you can do.
The Carter Cole not help with covering up some of the home that McCoy has left?
Well, I think Terry Cole is a good inside guy, but I mean, I'll ask you, know, it's a good technique. That was a good, he's a square nose guy, right? Right. A square stance, 3-4 guy. And I don't think you're going to put him out there in the track stance and get him in 3 technique and say, go beat the guard. I think he's a 2-gap player. And I think that's what I'm talking about. I think that dictates exactly what you can and can't do with the personnel.
Well, and thank you, Alice. I got your message. I appreciate it. Maybe I need to speak up a little bit, so I apologize for that. But you know what? I was so excited about still excited, I would say, about the Cowboys defense. I do have some concerns, right? Zechariah, at one point, I was truly thinking it was going to be the best in the league. Seemed like we had enough depth. The second tier, the linebackers, we had some pretty good deals there. But honestly, I was a little bit worried about, can we stay healthy at the linebacker position? Sean, what are you kind of thinking on the injury?
No. When's the last time you played a full season?
And you know, and that's the other thing. George, you speak to this. I mean, you start getting along in the team, you're not going to make the whole season. I mean, that's just part of what you have to do and how you have to manage your body. And so, yeah, now you go, okay, are they a 3-4 team? Now that puts more stress on those inside guys because they got to step up in there and be more physical. They don't have that. They don't have that 2-eye and that 3 technique eating up those 3 guys and let them run. That's right. Now they got to come down and build new players. Now, is that going to cause more issues for a guy, like Sean Lee, for instance? I think, he's shown that he can handle it, except he's not, these last few years. And I think to your point, I think that's a big issue and something that they're going to have to address. Now, here's the other thing when you start thinking about that. I mean, fellas, there's no preseason games. Nope. Now, we're going to go get some guys if you want to constantly turn the bottom of your roster. You're not watching guys practice. You're not seeing other guys that are out there. I mean, literally, you are rolling the dice and gambling if you have to bring somebody else in.
So how does that? Have you been in the shadow now, right?
When I first got here, no question.
So how hard does that make it for people to evaluate guys when there's no preseason games? We don't talk about it enough. I know the players maybe they got to win. They're not having to play preseason games, but what does it do for other people when you can't evaluate consistently right now?
You got to go back to college state. You got to go back to those scouts who have seen those guys, who saw those guys, who maybe that was in their area, in their scouting area, and you go back and speak to. Hey, so-and-so's out there, and do we have a report on this kid? Maybe, wherever he played at. And I think that's just, it really is a twofold situation. It takes away from an opportunity of the guy to make a team, even if he gets cut, he's got something out there in the preseason that he can kind of hang his hat on. So I think it is such a strange year, and I'll go to this, George, when I called you probably 2 months ago, when we started talking about COVID, we started talking about all the race issues, all the things that are out there. I think it's such a strange time for football across the board that it's really going to be a try in every area. And I'm sure you're doing that right now with what you're doing, coaching high school football.
Yes, literally, like right now. Watching these text messages come in, but okay, so we started up front a little bit and started to hit on the linebackers a little bit. We talked about Charlie. What about Andrews in the mix? Are there concerns about if he's totally healthy? You know how it is when you play, you got these things in the neck, and you're in a position where you have to tackle all the time.
This started as like well, at least from what I remember, they were saying this was a couple weeks that he was going to be out. Then he had surgery, and then they ended up he wasn't coming back. So, what is the deal now?
Well, I mean, we can't have college traditions, right? He was wearing that neck roll in college. I mean, let's see that. Let's see those ones since. No, I was playing. I know I'm old. But early 80s.
I think Romanowski's the last one I remember wearing that.
But the point I'm making is I think you have skaters coming out of college in a more physical game, he came to the next level, and he's a heck of a football player. I mean, he can run, he's long. What good is he doing inside out? And hopefully they address that issue. And we know, Drew Dawson, the guy that, the Cowboys medical staff is second to none. So you have to put some faith in the fact that maybe they fix that and maybe he's ready to go.
Who's their fourth linebacker you have to go before?
I mean, literally, I think you, right now, you would have to say, I would guess you would have to say, I don't know. I don't know if he's going to listen to the depth chart.
George has the depth chart. He doesn't even know.
That's why I asked the question.
No Thomas, Justin Marks, Luke Guilford.
And that's, Luke, that was the kid last year who they were all shouting the rear end about because he was so great at special teams. He didn't make it out of the preseason, so he was hurt. So I don't know. I mean, I think that's an absolute gamble. Now, my question to you is, do they don't have like 4 linebackers if they hit the midfield? Got you now. I mean, who's that guy going to do? And I think those are questions that the Cowboys are going to have to answer. And guess what? That counts right out of the box. And that's, to me, that's something that you don't have to. It's almost like, you like to say, when's the first scrimmage? If I can go over there and take a look, we can get a feel for what's going on. Because right now, we're just throwing darts.
You can't experiment now with what the person is.
Are they allowed to have joint practices?
No. Literally, you are in your team confined, and I think they call them. There's 3 different types, from what I understand, George, when they. You have the type 1 guys, like the players and coaches, your training staff, Bucky and Mike, and maybe one other guy, and that's it. And then after that, then you got the guys that are kind of on the periphery, and then you got the guys that are scouts. And from what I understand, they move the whole scouting department into the Omni Hotel. They're not even in the facility. So, I mean, there's no way they're going to do anything. Cross practice or cross work or anything. It's going to be, you're going to have good guys, and then you're going to be churning the bottom of the roster, possibly looking for guys who you at least have a feel for, or your college scouts have a feel for. That you targeted, and I'm sure they have some sort of board set and they say, hey, here's our top 15 or 20 guys. If they get cut from here, or here, we want to bring those guys in. That's the only way you're going to be able to do it. And you're going to have to go on the fact that they play football game in a year.
Does this? Now I know it makes you, as a scout, it makes you job harder. But is there also a risk in job security, I suppose, if it turns out that some of the previous reports are not what they thought they were, and now this is like your Bible, right? This is all you had. And if you were so off base on how many guys you've been looking at.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You probably don't even know this because when he was still playing, there was a guy named Mike Giddens, and he coached in San Francisco for a while for Dickman, the dad. Well, he kind of carved himself a niche in business. He was a complete, he had no ties to anybody, but he would grade everybody in the preseason. He graded every player in the preseason. Then, as a football team, if you wanted a complete unbiased look, he could pay for those reports. And so he would be complete unbiased with everybody. So that was a way that you could go in and what I liked about how he graded guys was he would give you a flat arrow, which that means he doesn't see any upside, you just do what you are. He'd give you an arrow going up, like normally a younger guy who you might see something from in the preseason, he might say, hey, he's got this guy, or you get the arrow down. And let me tell you something, you stay away from somebody who got the arrow down and say, hell to no, we don't want any of them guys long in the tooth with the arrow going down, even if somebody else likes them. So when you think about taking those things out of the equation, to me, that's what makes it, guys, that's what's going to make this even more difficult and challenging. I don't even want to say preseason because it ain't a damn preseason, no games. I mean, just 3 weeks of practice. They have weeks of practice.
I don't know. I don't know how to do it. And I've done a couple of interns for the NFL team, but we internship with a big run. A couple of Clancy and Good Clancy and another one was Cardinals. Clancy was there also. So watching that and learning how people evaluate people, it's very intriguing to me. I think it's helping as a high school football coach as well. They can see what other people look at. It's very interesting. So I can't let you get away without talking about the secondary as well. Hey, man, we're having a great time out here. I love it. Yeah, party going on. Y'all better hurry up and get here, man. I don't want to be part of this show. I love it. That's really cool. Okay, so JT and Tim and I had a discussion. How many weeks ago?
2 weeks ago.
Three, but we'll talk about doing in the one-on-one bids of season. Now, there's only one homer up here at the table. That we're all on Sean bids talking about how he was, I don't know, seemed like the next Terrell Regis, and he was in him talk. And the other two up here were Cleveland, the respect he deserves. So what say you about it?
I say this about, in this, I'm in the street for George here. When you come out of Alabama, you've been coached by the best technique teacher from a secondary standpoint.
Oh, time! Okay.
I don't know if you were sneezing or what was happening, but to answer your question, I know he questioned Diggs' speed, his true speed. And they believe that he's near as fast as what they see. I believe in man in the combine. I don't know that they didn't have the program.
How do you look at the second round draft this year? You don't take a second, in the second round. That's not a second round.
You don't let it go down there.
He said,
Come on, man.
Unless he goes to Alabama.
there you go. Man, D. Miller went so high, he ended up being a bust.
My CD round was beating him like a bass drum. Now, if he got outside, okay, he might not be
our brother with that bass drum.
CD round, beat him like a bass drum.
Hey,
They call this the teach show, so I've been put me in that position.
Okay, so I don't know how the competition's going in the secondary right now. You really got to behind someone. So he has to win it. He still has to take it. I mean, he can be a nickel if he didn't win anything. He wouldn't show up that way. It's probably going to be back into what you were saying. It's going to be hard to evaluate if he's not going to be very talented. You still got 3 guys ahead, right? It's Keto, Jordan, and Ryan.
Yeah, but you got to look at you and you say, hey, you got the Cheetos to be on one side. Now the competition is for who's on the right side. I've been very critical the last few years of this Cowboys section. I mean, I think it's a weak link on the football team.
We already feel like a decade. You say that? So I'm not going to try to do. I think they've been bad for a long time. Like a decade? Yes. Like a decade. That is good in my opinion. That is kind of good in my opinion. He's already had one question about it now. What he thought the really good the team was. Maybe that's what Xavier did. I don't know.
Now we're back to what I was going to say with Mike Glen. When you think about him, you probably think about Earl going up and Xavier. Okay. I think there's no question being upgraded over Jeffy was a half step slow, but he's a smart. We can't take that away from him. He got him lined up all the time. They did not bust him up. But let me tell you something. As far as takeaways, interceptions, I mean, I ain't no problem with letting Byron Jones get out of here because he should hit the ball. He didn't touch the ball. Hell no, touch somebody. He didn't do that.
2 picks in 5 years. Career.
How much you get paid?
Well, he got paid 81 million for Miami. Nobody else.
$17 million a year for 2 picks over 5.
There's your scouting department. So you want to see something.
Also, one guy with the arrow going up.
That's it. He ain't got an arrow going up. He is up. But I do think that the Cowboys secondary is going to be, again this year, if they're going to have to go out and prove that they can get their hands on footballs, I mean, intercept the balls, you got to get these people that are better than anybody. Nothing changes the tide of the football game the way sacking the quarterback does or getting an interception. And that's, this is another point on that too. I'll ask you this, because it's always been the scouting mentality that you build from the front back. Is that still the case today? Would you rather have a snake who's going to hit you some hits a corner, or you want to have that guy that's going to sack the quarter?
I think the guy that.
I think it's something that we could
Still, if you're not getting the first on quarterback or the rushing subject, when you come and hit the quarterbacks are too good, the wide receivers are too good. The rules can't touch anybody either. So, is that something? Yes. That's it. It's flag football, like you said. So it's
No, because I play flag football and I can touch the people way more than you can.
Yeah. That was the over 21
Yeah.
So, Coach, I want to know what your thoughts were on, since we're talking about the secondary. Heard some rumblings since the draft, really since before the draft, about the possibility of moving Cheeto to safety.
I have no idea about that. I haven't heard that, but I think there's got to be a heck of a transition for that guy. And I'm not sure that he is as physical as you want to say. I don't see, and this is me just looking at the film and analyzing. It's not like I see a corner that comes in there and smacks. I mean, if you're a safety in this defense, you got to bring the damn lunchbox and your hard hat. You're going to have to go in there and make some plays. You do that better than anybody. You got to be able to be a ball hawk, and you got to be physical against the run. I just don't see that. I don't see what characteristics out of him. Good question. He's going to have to be a corner. I think you decide, is this something you want to do long term, or do you think you got to go figure out how to get more corner?
One, it's a contract year for him too, so I don't know that he wants to change positions and going into a contract year. He doesn't know how he's going to perform at his regular position, much less going to safety.
All players are going to be concerned about this year. Football so, all right, now we're talking about a little bit about the defense, but what does that mean? What do we finish? Where does the Cowboys defense finish? Overall defense. Top 10 defense.
They were top 10 last year.
I think if Alden Smith comes in here and he's looking at what everybody thinks he is, Randy Gregory can give it up on the strawberry zigzag. He can stay in there. You know, you gotta like Lawrence, you gotta like Crawford. I mean, I still think there's something you can pressure. You're going to have to get pressure. You're going to have to create pressure. The defense front, and I still think that I still think they're going to be they'll be upgraded high quarterbacks if they can stay healthy. The linebackers, I mean, they'll be good enough to compete for winning the season.
Okay, I like it, brother. I like it. So, can we get past first line play? Who are they?
So I was talking to my buddy Nick last night about where we thought the Cowboys could be. I think we both said on that they had potential to go to the competition. We didn't want to stop in the end, but I said that I think they should win the division and they should be able to win every playoff game, possibly two, if you pick the championship. You think that's unrealistic?
I don't think so. I think you got a really good offensive football team. I mean, you got a quarterback who can function, you got receivers who can run, then you got a youth who tight end and Jordan and back who will hammer it up in there for you. You got a medic. If you put if Lamb is shooting the slot guy, Gallup, we all know what the Alabama is. You got matchup problems. You're going to have to decide. You're going to stay nickel. You stay nickel. Then it's Zeke, and you go hammering and darting. You go do some things with him, and those offensive line are going to be good. And I'd like to see. I'd like to see who they're going to play soon. Are they going to move Mooney in there? Is he going to be kind of the guy? And if he is, and you got that experience there, I just think Cowboys offense, you got problems matching up with Cowboys offense right now. You have issues. And so they've done a great job of drafting them.
Yes. What do you think about McGovern?
I don't know much. I don't know much about him. I know that they lost him at Penn State. I mean, he went down there. He went down early. That's going to provide some offensive line depth right there. So I do think that, I mean, I like to call on him. You got a swing guard. You good swing tackle. I mean, I think you've got a good offensive line, good quarterback, really good receivers, and I think a good one tight end. I mean, what else you asking for next?
Okay, so let's do this. Let's do the total over break. Now, before we go to break, I need to ask you about the sun and some other things. Then I want to come back, talk a little bit more defense. We're going to go to the division money segment, and then we'll talk about this. We're going to have more time. Okay, so let's talk about your field because last week we had Aaron Beck on, who's the head coach for Austin, Fort Worth Austin. We talked about the whatever we did with Capsule, but let's shout out the Cap. There you go, Brian. I know you want about those guys one Alabama game. But you got a big part, with high school football as well. Can you kind of tell us what you do with the Fort Worth Austin?
Yeah, I've been real fortunate. I've been 13-year-old growing ball and coaching and coach back studio and opportunity to coach him, coach my son. And by the way, I know Glen, I know you'll speak to this. I coached at Oklahoma, I coached at Northern Illinois, I coached at Dallas Cowboys, coached at the house. You ain't never coached football, you have to go coach junior. You ain't have to do a damn what. When you got to go show up here, I'm putting the damn five-boards in, I'm putting knee methods in, I'm putting mouthpieces, you have to do all the hand done, Jack. So, hey, I love it. I love the challenge of coaching those young guys. It's been a heck of an experience for me. It's been great to be able to coach my son and be around him and just be able to see him grow as a young man. and love the game as much as I do. Obviously, Coach Ben's done a heck of a job at all times. I mean, I think again, he's a great guy, and he does a heck of a job. He's got to really put the offensive line over there. I mean, they're working boys to fly in the heat. He's got a quarterback that's a good player. And then he's got a they've got a kid will be a natural that I think would be, if he stays healthy, if they can have coach for 2 years, if they're absolutely George Glen, one of the best quarterbacks maybe in the country. And so that's what he's got to do.
What's great that they're able to bring the quarterback. We have to over there to help him some more with really great. So what do you think about college football?
And it's interesting when you ask me that because, you know, I was on the Randy Galloway forever and his show on ESPN. He lives out there, he's a big Illinois fan. You know, he's asked me many times, you know, that we multiple state championships in the league. And I know this. Private school football in Texas doesn't get the numbers as far as depth that a 5A or 6A school gets. When you look across the board at the starting leaders, private school football in this state is damn good. And I'm talking about if you sit here and start going over guys last year, you know, I do the color for all things football on my screen. And so, you know, I see every school, every week, and whether that's the Regent School down in Austin, whether that's Nolan Catholic, whether it's Bishop Dunn, whether it's your school down all of them are well coached and they've got overachieving kids mixed in with some 1A prospects. And when you have that, you create a culture in which you can go and really be competitive. And I think that's what you're seeing in college football in the state of Texas. You got a very competitive brand.
Well, thank you, man. Thank you. We're going to leave it there. We're going to take a short break. And we'll come back and talk to you more. Even football from down Cowboys and some offensive football. With Coach Glen Stretch. Thank you. We'll see you all over exactly what we want. Perfect. We'll hit the restroom real quick. About how many minutes? 4.5 minutes? 5 minutes? About 3.5 right now. 3.5
Hey, this is Ep05. I want to talk to you about the Maverick Bar and Grill in Carrollton, Texas. The $12 Superior Sports Bar and Grill located at 1616 West Eaton Parkway. It's 16 minutes from just about anywhere in the DFW Metroplex. With all of the live action on dozens of TVs and big screen, it's the place to hang out and watch the current selection all the time. Friday and Saturday nights, you'll find the best live music from DFW right there at the Maverick Bar. And of course, on Thursday nights at 6 p.m., you'll find C-State broadcasting live in Alabama, Cowboys, and George Team. Come and be part of the show. Check out the Maverick Bar and Grill in Carrollton, 972-275-00.
Well, y'all better throw me off, man. This last 15, shit, somebody else got to talk to me.
Featuring my kitchen and 30 years experience covering America's team. It's the most popular variety show again for the Cowboys and Cast podcast. Cowboys.com is the place to get inside the Cowboys. With such a time between models and reporters over there, they'll always have the latest personnel and roster news, salary calculations, and draft prospects. Head on over to Cowboys.com with all of the new and get the inside seat on the SEC.
Next time you set your home, you listen to all the little things you need to teach. You don't need to listen from the one first contact. In fact, the whole of the home is there. They do it all. So let's put plumbing, the
Yes, please. Give them love.
Hello, Geeks fans. This is the cartoon. I want to talk to you about a big thing over at Meat Church. You want to take your barbecue and grill game to the next level? Check out the great line of products from Meat Church Barbecue. Seasoning, and rubs to full-blown recipes and things like pork.
Burnt ends, smoked queso, ribs, smoked bologna, and Texas-style brisket. Meat Church has what you need. If your barbecue and grilling game is lacking, check out their barbecue classes and other events. They'll help you raise your game to impress friends and family. If you're in the Waxahachie area, please check out their store at 205 West College Street or give them a call at 214-980-1063 or head on over to meatchurch.com for locations near you where you can get all their great products or order directly online at meatchurch.com. Welcome back to the Maverick Bar with Teague's Take, the George Teague podcast, live from the Maverick Bar in Carrollton, Texas, as we are every Thursday night at 6 p.m. Come and join us. I was going to say come shake some hands, but I guess we don't do that anymore. I keep making that mistake. So I'll say come and do some elbow bumps with us. Maybe have a beer or two and have some dinner. Hamburgers out here are great. They're awesome. I'm going to have one as soon as we are done here.
Are you going to hamburger? I was thinking about the chicken wings.
Yeah,
Always the chicken wings.
You're right.
Every
what was
time.
I thinking? I don't know what I was thinking. I agree.
And the fries. Oh,
No,
my
the
God.
fries are the best.
We need to start putting those up here on the table and just.
We'll go through them all during the show. We'll just eat them all.
Well, we'll let the guests just keep talking, and we'll do the eating, and they, you know.
That ain't been a problem that first 30 minutes. God dang.
Oh man, it's great, man. We really appreciate it. So, all right, it's time.
Let's get back into it.
Little JT, money.
Yeah, so for the Money Matters segment, brought to you by ProfoundSites.com. Shout out to Brent, who does the GeorgeT.com website. This week I wanted to kind of talk about some of the, I guess I'll call it a controversy around Randy Gregory's reinstatement. Now, the question is not whether or not he should have been suspended or for how long or anything like that. It's more centered around, what do you think about guys like Alden Smith being reinstated on a quicker kind of expedited timeline where Randy Gregory is still kind of sitting at home? We're in training camp now. He's asking questions, and then he just keeps getting told to wait, or he's being ignored. And there seems to be no progress at all on whether he has no idea whether he's coming back or not, because he's had no communication with the league. He's reached out on Twitter, and attorneys have just kind of blocked him at this point. Won't take his questions. So what do you guys think about this?
So he claims to have turned in his reinstatement papers. Yet there have been people at the league office that have denied that. So at this point, we don't even know if he's really trying. You know, it seems to me if he had filed his reinstatement papers, it's not a long, doesn't have to be a long process. I mean, we've seen this before, but so the logical conclusion would be he hasn't filed his papers to be reinstated.
Well,
To me.
here's what I think about. And George, let's go back to your time with the Cowboys. Let's go back to really understanding what we're talking about here. And I don't want to get into the the doctor's jargon, but I mean, again, supposedly we were dealing with a bipolar person who was, the medication is, I want to say it's lithium that they normally give for that, George. We can go back to talking about the kid that we had from Michigan State. Help me with his name. lately. The defensive end from Michigan, Michigan State, who we it's around the tip of my tongue. And then we also then had Alonzo Spellman. Both of those young men, were having issues in taking that medicine. They say the only way you could get leveled out from that medicine was to,
medicate.
Was to medicate with,
Something.
Burning one on the left hand side.
That's right. You just said
one hitter.
That green.
Yeah. But on a serious end of things, I mean, we medically right now we know that it has some. There are some strong things that say that it helps a lot medically. Wes Chandler, who I know very well, coached here with us, and Wes played in the league. He has some unbelievable. And had some unbelievable health issues where that medical marijuana has helped him. So I'm giving you a long answer here, but I don't know how this young man to level himself. Who knew when the test was coming? They got off
They
of
knew?
it.
I didn't know that. I never knew
You
that.
knew daggone well that thing was coming. You knew that thing was coming at training camp. You knew exactly when it was coming in. So, who were able to get away from that because they knew when they were going to be tested, and then the rest of the year, they were minding their own business. But I do think that Randy Gregory is going to be a continuing issue because he can play. He is a great rush end. And I'm talking about, I saw him do some things on film, and I'm talking about since with the Cowboys, that you can see why the risk reward is there and why they keep taking that risk with him. Because like we talked about in the previous segment, George, got to have somebody go get to the quarterback. He can get to the quarterback.
That's right.
Now, can he handle his off the field issues, and can he handle his whatever they're giving him medically to try to get him leveled out? Those are all things that I think that's why they pay Roger Goodell all that money. They got to try to figure that out at another level.
Side note, were we talking? Was the guy's name David Irving?
No.
Okay.
No, that's another.
He was George, you don't remember? Golly, that makes me mad. He went to Michigan State. He went to Michigan State. The Vikings took him, and I mean he was a man.
Underwood.
Demetrius Underwood.
Demetrius Underwood.
And I mean, he was a freak. He was
Yes,
6'5",
he was.
325, and I mean could fly. And you saw when you just flip the film on him, college film, and I mean he would just jump off at you, and you'd be like, oh my gosh! But they couldn't keep him.
But he's also the guy that walked out in the middle of the street.
I didn't say you didn't think the Kentucky Derby was a hat. I didn't get into all that. I said he could play some football.
But so one of the things, and you kind of alluded to it a minute ago, because I always, and I know everybody, you listeners and everybody else is talking about this, is how much of this is Goodell trying to stick it to somebody or having too much power and all those kind of things, because I know that comes into play, whether he applied or not, and whether or not the rules are, fit or not fit for people who are doing medical marijuana and things of that nature. You still got a system that's there where there is a person who is in complete control of this decision, and he gets to make it when he wants. And if he's supposed to give it to him in 2 months or whatever, and he decides he doesn't want to, well, guess what? He doesn't want to.
Right.
Now, I'm not standing on one side or the other. If it's right or not, I think that still has to be looked at from an organizational standpoint. I don't know if that's ever going to change, honestly. It's been that way for how long that the commissioner kind of has.
Oh, I would almost guarantee that's going to change moving forward. the marijuana rules in the NFL.
Oh, I was talking about the all amount power.
Yeah, he's talking about
Oh,
Goodell
that,
being
yeah,
judge,
yeah.
jury,
The
and
authority.
executioner.
Yeah, that'll never change. Sorry,
Yes.
sorry.
So if you can't do that, and I feel for Randy Gregory in a lot of ways with that. Is it fair? Is it not? What's the truth? What isn't? Man, there's always two sides to the doggone story, right?
Right.
But it doesn't matter. Still sitting at that office, and if Goodell wanted to be reinstated, he's the one that's going to be able to say that he's back, right or not. I don't know why we're not a little bit more transparent when we're talking about NFLPA. So Randy Gregory did talk about the NFLPA not helping or pushing this. So if he did not apply, the NFLPA is supposed to be there for guidance to be able to say, hey, bro,
Right.
submit the correct way or whatever, or make some other kind of statement about Goodell that, hey, he's not helping our player. So it's way too complicated, man. I mean, but that's our CBA. That's, and everything else. And is he going to come back? I think he bring up some valid points about himself, and so I'm going to change a little bit because we talked about it some. If he does come back, I know he's been working out. Is the probability of him getting hurt greater because it's different when you start working out with your guys and you're running?
And he hadn't really played. I mean, he didn't play last year.
I mean, is it
Right, and
another
now-
Gerald McCoy?
Right, and
that,
that's right. And now you start talking about Alden Smith. He didn't play in a year.
Yeah.
Now you got
Well, he hadn't played in
Randy
4
Gregory.
years, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, he hadn't. But all of these guys are risk reward guys. How many of those guys can you afford? George, to be taking a chance on? And I think that's something they're going to have to discuss in the personnel department, and something that they're going to have to say, hey, they have. This, George. Jerry is a businessman.
yes, he is.
He knows, whether you like it or not, he is the voice in the NFL. Period. He is speaking number one. And you have to know that he has a feel one way or the other, or Randy Gregory wouldn't still be around.
That's right.
He has a feel. He's a wild. I mean, think about what Jerry. He was a wildcatter. If he drilled a hole over there and it didn't have any oil in it, well, hell, we moved over there. And if that didn't, and we moved over there. And then eventually he hit one. But he knew everything he does is a calculated risk. So he knows something about that. And you have to think that, with Randy Gregory, he has a feel that he is going to be able to come back in here. And if he does, then I think at his age, I think he can still step in and contribute to this defense. And I think that's what Jerry's hoping that it gets done.
So, how was it? How'd you? Because I got to play with him, not for or played for Jerry, but never really worked for him. Tell us about that family dynamic. How was that to be in those meetings and sitting in there? And because there's always so much talk about, is he the coach? Is he making the decisions? Is he telling someone to make the call? Right. What were your experiences like, as a coach?
I mean, I'll just tell you this. I mean, number one, it's a great organization to work for. He's a great man to work for. He's what you want. He's loyal. He's everything that you want from a boss. Sometimes did things become uncomfortable in a meeting room if maybe you got to draft time? He was the one making the final decision. The scouts were wanting one guy. The coaches were wanting another. And then you get the other, and then the coach has to come in and see that young man play and think, boy, I better be careful of being critical of him because this is the guy that Jerry liked. I can only tell you my point of reference.
That's right.
And my point of reference was because of my relationship with Jim Donnan. I was sent to go spend time with Randy Moss. And I went to Huntington, West Virginia, and spent a week with Randy Moss. And I could find nothing. I talked to coaches. I talked to pastors. Hey, okay, he had a joint at Florida State. Okay, he got in a squabble with his girlfriend at Notre Dame, and Lou Holtz had to throw him out. Was there anything that would just cause you to say, no, we can't take this guy? But as you know, at the time, Michael was in trouble. We had some issues here in town. Chan Gailey had taken over the football team. I was screaming, take this guy. I'd never seen anything like it. I mean, you know, I believe he could have played in the NBA. I truly do. But Jerry ultimately let Chan, who was the head coach, make the decision on who the pick was. And now, when people start criticizing Jerry, saying he's too involved, I go to my own point of reference. And I say, ultimately, he lets football people make the decision. He's listening because he's that kind of guy. He wants to know. But ultimately, he let the football people make the football decisions. And, you know, as much as he wanted Randy Moss. No question about it. And so did Larry Lacewell, wanted Randy Moss. And
that was the Greg Ellis pick, right?
And and I don't want to be critical of Greg Ellis. Greg Ellis is a hell of a guy and a hell of a football player.
Yeah.
But is he a Hall of Famer? Would that have changed? Right. Would that have changed? And the point I'm making is every time people say, well, Jerry's the coach. Jerry's this. No, he's not. He just wants to know what's going on with his football team. And he's a hell of a guy to work for. And if I had any opportunity to work for a guy like that or work for Jerry Jones, I'm going to champion the whole process and tell you he is nothing but a first-class guy.
Well, and I'll have to say, and thank you for saying that. I appreciate it because I know a lot of people have different angles, and I can say from a player standpoint, I loved him as a player because he was a player's owner, player's GM or something, and you can see what the decision that he's making, even with troubled guys or whatever, he tends to be in their corner. Of course, they're business moves and football moves, but there are a lot of people that will turn their backs on athletes, a lot of owners that will say, hey, we're done and gone, and he's never been that way, whether it's been on the field or off the field. People that he brings in, he legitimately tries to help them. And I can specifically say, for me, when I got traded and cut from the Atlanta Falcons, and my first conversation with Jerry Jones, it was awesome. Forgive me if I've told this story once, but I need to say it again because I got traded and I was angry when I left out of Green Bay. And they traded me off to the Falcons, and 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, I was cut by the Falcons.
Who was the coach back then? Was that the
dude from Hawaii? What's his name?
June Jones.
June Jones was the coach. So anyway, that's a whole nother story. Maybe we need to do an extra deal. But my point is, Jerry called. He was on the phone. It was Dave Campbell on the phone. And he said, hey, George, this is Jerry. And he went straight to the point. And he asked me a very direct question. George, what the hell is wrong with you? And I said, Jerry, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Nothing wrong with me. Now, I had a badass attitude. I'll tell you that. And I don't know why they signed me or whatnot. But he did say, hey, listen, we got an issue with our safeties. You say there's nothing wrong with you, I'm going to take you at your word. All you need to do is you need to come in and pass the physical, and you're going to be on the field, and you're going to play Saturday,
Right.
like Thursday. You're going to be on the field on Saturday if you pass this physical.
And I literally can remember. I mean, I can remember them coming in and saying, because I was still in the scouting at that time, saying, hey, let's take a look at this guy. Somebody in scouting had brought him up, say, hey, he can still play. And that's exactly another point that I'm talking about. Then a coach stood up, said, hey, we got two damn safeties here who can't play dead in the John Wayne Western. Go get that guy. We went and got that guy. That guy came in and played, and and the rest is history. That's literally you're telling a story, and I'm telling you that's exactly how it works. He picks up the phone. He wants to know, is there something wrong with you physically? You got the red ass about something. You got you something's wrong. Okay, and he's easy to talk to and tell that to. And then all of a sudden, because of what he did to you, reaching out to you, then you came in here and were as good a soldier and was good a loyal player as could have been for a veteran guy in a team that was transitioning, because we weren't worth the tinker's ass in. We might have been 5-11 that year. I don't remember, but it was not good. It was not good to come in here and play for, because 4 years earlier than that, my first year here, we'd won the Super Bowl. So literally we went from we went from drinking the wine to stomping the grapes in a few years. But Jerry was constantly wanting to upgrade the football team, and whether that was through a veteran like you or whatever, he wasn't afraid to go out and step out and do that. And that's the kind of guy, in my mind, George, that's the kind of guy you want to work for and play for, and I know you understand that.
Yeah, so, man, I love it because I love telling those stories, and that's where I got to put my little tagline, right? I got to get this. You've just been teased. I love it, man. Thank you guys very much. So let's talk some offense.
Okay.
A little bit before we go.
It's a valid point. It's a valid question. We were going to discuss Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore.
Yeah. So
are they going to be able to mesh offensively? For the first time in his head coaching career, Mike McCarthy's not calling plays.
Yeah, so I have a theory.
Right. Or is he?
So I have a suspicion, and I want you to weigh in on it, because I thought when they hired McCarthy, the first thing McCarthy was going to do basically was get rid of everybody, which the whole defensive staff is basically gone. But as a play caller himself, I didn't actually think that he was going to keep on Kellen Moore. And I wonder, since we had just been talking about Jerry Jones, does Jerry Jones see Kellen Moore as like the Jason Garrett figure that might eventually come out of the OC and, groom him to be another head coach of the Cowboys? Do you think that was kind of the reason that he stayed on, or do you think Mike McCarthy really liked what he saw?
He said that he was given the choice to keep him or let him go, and he chose to keep him.
Well, I'm sure that he was given the choice, but I'm also sure that, and I can't say this, I'm sure that Jerry Jones saw some Sean Payton-style qualities in Kellen Moore. I'm sure he saw some Jason Garrett-style qualities in Doug Nussmeier, because those are the two guys that were kept. Now, think about what those guys were as players, quarterbacks, right? Smart guys that led the football team, guys that were able to lead a meeting room, guys that were able to stand up confident in who they are. And so I'm sure that Jerry said to Mike, hey, here's two guys that I think you ought to talk to, because I think that they can help you transition into what you want to do. Because let's think about, again, we'll go back to what we said initially in the podcast, fellas. It's about players. It's about players. And so when you've got a quarterback in Dak Prescott who isn't he a franchise quarterback? We could sit here and argue that. That's for another show. But they had to keep some and bridge the distance between a quarterback who they were going to pay franchise tag money to and an offense that he'd been in since he'd been in the NFL and been coached by Wade Wilson and taught the name protection digital passing system. Now, that's not what Mike McCarthy does. He's a West Coast guy. He's opposite of that. Numbers of protections, names the routes. So he had to have somebody to bridge the language to help transition from one year to the next year. And I think that's exactly what you saw him do. And that's the challenge that you're going to see is he had to keep some of those guys. He kept the two smart guys and said, hey, we got to put this offense together. We're going to use some of my concepts with some of what Dak can do, and I want you to help me with the verbiage and the language, and that's what they've done.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's good. And so with the personnel that he has, well, how do you feel about the guys up front, right? There's the big boys.
Right. I think it's still a top 5 offensive line in the league, no question about it.
So Zeke, with him having a little bit of anger and issues about him wanting his credit and his due, he in this offense that Mike runs, you see him coming out of the backfield a whole lot more and maybe catching the ball, more screens,
draws.
Correct.
Yes, that is what I see. I think we're going to go back to what we said earlier. I think it's going to become a matchup issue. Do you like what you're seeing from a matchup perspective? If they come nickel people, you got a back that can hammer them, and I think that's exactly what you'll see them do. They're going to become more of a north-south running team versus what they had been with Jason, which was a zone team. And George, I'll speak to this with you because you knew this. I mean, Emmett was not a great zone runner. I mean, a zone guy has to really be able to press the outside hip of that tackle, and then he's got to run it where it feels good. Where Emmett was a foul, man, I'm going right now. Well, I think that's what Zeke has too. I think Zeke is a downhill runner. Well, the game's changed. You're not just going to line up a fullback in there and say we're going to run ISO. Go get Moose Johnson in there, and he's going to go blow the mic up, and then we're going to cut our running back loose on the safety. So that has changed. However, it hasn't changed from the fact that if you've got that guy that's a downhill runner, I think you feed him, and I think that's what you're going to see them do this year.
Man, that's good. That's good. So who's going to be the leading receiver? This is all subjective, but you got Cooper. Oh.
I mean, the plan is for Cooper to be your one, right? Your wide receiver one for sure.
Is he going to – I mean, are we going to be that prolific? Are we going to look like Green Bay? You know.
I mean, I'm not convinced. I like him and everything. I'm not convinced Michael Gallup is the number one option for Cowboys or any other team.
I agree.
Yet at this point in his career, he might develop into one, but in my opinion, he's not a wide receiver one on any roster. And of course,
he's an Allen Robinson to me.
Of course, we don't know anything about CeeDee Lamb yet, so but
not enough about CeeDee Lamb. Is
well,
he going to?
You know about
know
about CeeDee Lamb. Get him the damn ball in the perimeter and let him run it. That's
right.
exactly what you're
how much is that going to be? Is he going to have? What is his ratio? Well, I know it's going to be more passing yards, but what if you had to say, you know, how often they're going to try to run this guy on jet sweeps and use him like Tyreek Hill or whoever?
I don't see that too much. I don't think that. I see him more of what Randall Cobb was supposed to be when Randall Cobb got here, and a way more athletic Cole Beasley. Those kind of things. Get him out, speed out, hit him quick, let him turn up the sideline, and tell somebody to go catch him.
I mean, I think he's a vertical threat. I think you're going to see them. I think you're going to see more vertical passing game with this team this year. I think Gallup can go up and get the football. I mean, we know what Cooper can do, and I think CeeDee Lamb can run. And I like Jarwin. I think Jarwin threatens a deep middle too. I mean, he can.
Yeah.
You saw him last year get out, and anytime you can have those guys who and George, speak to this, who you know damn well, nobody fears it worse than you, getting deep. So if you have four guys who are that threat, I like Randall Cobb. I like little Cole Buck Beasley. He ain't threatening you deep. I want a guy that can go get the toes of the safety and make him open his hips and run, because when you do that, now you're either the hammer or you're the nail. You're trying to get the damn hammer. And the way you get the hammer against a defensive back is get to his feet and get him to open his hips and run. And when he does, he becomes the nail. You got the hammer.
So Dak have 4,000 yards passing. What's the over/under here on the yards passing for Dak this year?
Oh man,
I'm not gonna get into them fantasy stats. I'm gonna tell you, I think the Cowboys.
Yeah, we got some fantasy people
I know
watching.
that. I'm sure they do. But you got the wrong guy sitting in this chair. I think the Cowboys win the East, and I think they can go.
And you think the defense is in the top 10? So what about the offense? Are we with the weapons we have, the offense we have? Are we a top 3? Top 5?
I'd say top 5 for sure.
Offense with who in front? With who in front?
We got to think Kansas City.
Yeah, Kansas City.
You still have to. I mean, in
Are you
my
putting
mind,
the Saints in front of them?
I'll put the Saints in front of them.
You putting the Ravens in front of them?
No.
I wouldn't, but.
Well, what about? Are you going to put Tampa?
Are you going to put Tampa in front of them?
Right.
I gotta see Tampa. I'm not just because everybody showed up.
San Fran? Did they have a lot of yards, or were they just
Seattle?
Seattle's got one dude up
you
there
can make some
running
arguments.
Well, I think the Cowboys are a top 5 offense, the top 5 defense. If they can get a punter, they'll be all right.
All right. Well, let me ask this. So again, talking to Nick, and he asked me. We were talking about the Cowboys being a top 5 offense and a top 10 defense, yet we ended 8-8 at the end of the year. So with Mike McCarthy coming in, the question is, do you think that the 8-8 seasons, particularly last season, came down in a difference of coaching? Do we think that Mike McCarthy, was it a roster issue mixed with coaching issues that kept them at 8-8, or do we think that it was more coaching?
I guess I'm one of those guys that ultimately it's the players got to make plays, and so I put it on the players. But I mean, I would have bet you a lot of money last year that the Cowboys would have won at least 10 football games, and that's the reason that they air conditioned the desert, is because they had them at 8.5 wins, and that's right where they ended. So, you know, they leave it lit 24 hours a day and air conditioned where it's 110 for a reason, and you ain't winning. They are winning.
Well, that sounds like as good a place as any to end this thing. Air conditioning the desert, of course, a great Las Vegas reference. Gotta love Vegas.
The best one was playing dead in a John Wayne Western.
They couldn't play dead in a John Wayne Western. God, I'm gonna steal that.
Make sure you mark that on there. Use that as a clip. We'll have a.
Oh yeah, that's
gotta be a bumper.
That's gonna be a drop from now on.
Yes.
This is the Teagues Take podcast. We want to give special thanks to Coach Glen Smith. Came out, hung out with us for the last hour. Appreciate you coming out.
Yes, sir. Thank you, man.
Talking some Cowboys.
As always, thanks for having me. I do it for my man George Teague in a heartbeat.
Y'all make sure y'all tune in to all his shows he's watching and or that he's been in Analyst on. It's going to be fun to watch you, man. We continued success to you and your family, and good luck to you.
Appreciate you having me, fellas.
Hey,
Have
boy.
a blessed evening. Thanks, guys.
I'm going to tell you good luck to your middle school football team at All Saints.
That's what matters to me. That's the record
you.
I'm tagged with. I appreciate it again, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right, Coach. Drive
Okay,
safe.
guys,
Headed down
thank
there
you.
to Houston
Thank
for
you.
sure.
All right. We appreciate it, brother.
All right, and that's going to do it for us this week. Again, Teagues Take live from the Maverick Bar in Carrollton, Texas, each Thursday night at 6 p.m. We want to appreciate everybody that came out and watched us live, everybody watching on YouTube, Facebook, and Periscope. And if you're listening to the recorded podcast, please make sure to click subscribe, leave us a great review so others can find the podcast as well.
Yes, sir.
And until next week, we'll see you then.
Cowboys.